Welcome to the Self-Help Coaching Podcast, where insights, attitudes, and methods for success get illuminated. Learn what leaders and change workers have done and are doing now to create magnificent futures. We interview great guests who inspire you to overcome obstacles and achieve your goals. Be sure you visit our website at self-helpcoaching.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now, just relax as you listen. You can do something else, but be ready to make an important note. And let's get started.
The title of this interview is Achieving Goals Through Adversity. And my guest is Aaron Golub. We're going to be talking about entrepreneurship, his story, and overcoming obstacles. Aaron became the first legally blind athlete to play football in a Division I game when he was at Tulane University. He was a captain in his senior year and went on to also become an NFL free agent. Aaron never let his limited vision get in the way of his success. Aaron's grit, determination, and effort enabled him to earn a spot in the Tulane team and the respect of his teammates, coaches, and fans. Aaron began playing football in the 7th grade and worked extremely hard to get where he is today. His goal is to show others that it doesn't matter what they are fighting or what their perceived limitations are. Anything is achievable with hard work and tuning out the judgment of others. I love that. His planning, passion, and perseverance enables him to be successful. Aaron has paved the way for others with disabilities and shown that the impossible is possible. I love that. I love what you're about, Aaron. That's fantastic. That's the message that is the ubiquitous one, because everybody knows difficulties and everybody's got excuses. You threw your excuses right out the window and you went for it.
Appreciate that.
That's what it's all about, and straight off the bat, what do you think why people have so many excuses, or even just the few that stop them?
Yeah, there's tons of different reasons. I think one of the main ones is lack of self-confidence, lack of self-belief. If you truly want to accomplish something, you'll find a way to get it done. If you truly want to build that business, you'll figure it out. If you truly want to make that relationship work, you'll figure it out. If you truly want to, play that sport at a high level, you'll figure it out. It's putting in that time and effort that you need to. But I think people make excuses because they don't actually think that they can do something. They don't have that confidence. They don't have that belief in themselves. And because they don't, they'd rather make it seem like something else by making up some excuse and letting it seem like, oh, this circumstance or this reason caused them not to be able to do that.
Yeah, and then argue for its legitimacy. I'm a personal development coach, though I don't work one-on-one with people anymore. I'm the head of a technological coaching company. We're launching an app that's going to revolutionize self-help. So this is about self-help. I've been in self-help for a long time, even though coaching is often conflated with self-help. They have similarity, but they're distinct. At any rate, most people are not into self-help, even though it's been around for hundreds of years and it's a huge industry. And, people may or may not be familiar with it, but most people are not interested in it. And I contend that the primary reason is because they fear failure. They fear to fail. Why read this book? Why take this self-help course if I'm not going to succeed anyway, right? Then not only am I going to not succeed, I got to deal with the disappointment or the feelings involved. So they project that failure and they don't even go for it. Similarly, whether it be a self-help course or book, where, having knowledge that you might use. And by the way, my app Proficio is going to solve the problems of self-help and guarantee a person to succeed. And it's going to transform self-help. See, because when people know they're going to succeed, then they're going to go for it. A lot of times people say there's a fear of success. And I admit there is a fear of success, but I believe it's greatly exaggerated. Because if you could have everything you wanted, would you have it? Right? I don't know if anybody that wouldn't say yes. They would say yes. Of course I would. Then why don't you have it? Right? So it's going to transform self-help because people will succeed. It won't let them fail.
Definitely.
But also now I'm a coach. less people even are interested in coaching, because now you've got to deal with a human. Now you got that accountability, that projected judgment. Less people want to expose themselves to that. But with a person just has this own personal process, or they're going out into the public world where whatever they do is going to be seen by larger amounts of people, like you on the football field, right? You got to, I think when you go into the public, you've got to even be a little more courageous, as opposed to being, more private or anonymous, because if you fail, then they'll be, I guess some people will be like, hey, listen, they'll be right-minded people say, hey, get up and go for it. He or she is doing their best. But then there'll be the others like, oh, look at his bum. You tell me, you're the one who was on the football field. You're the one who went for it. You tell me how that was like.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are afraid of failure. A lot of people are afraid of other people's judgments and thoughts and beliefs of them. The thing that, you have to understand is that those ideas, those beliefs, those judgments, those thoughts of other people don't matter. They don't impact you. They don't affect you in any way. The only thing that matters is what you believe in yourself and how you can put the pieces together each and every day. And so, when I was playing football, I was told all the time that I could never do it, that I couldn't play, that I couldn't, play at the level that I wanted to play at, that I'd never make the teams that I made. But, for me, it was, do I believe that I truly can do this? Do I believe that I can make it? And tuning out that judgment, tuning out that criticism, because when you're able to do that, you're able to push forward. The issue is most people are so afraid of what other people think of them. I give the example of like, look, when you're at the gym, people are afraid that other people are staring at them and looking at them doing, some exercises and thinking about them, after the fact. And that's just not true. Look, someone might see you in the gym and look at you and think about what you're doing for 2 seconds and then forget about you. Like, everyone has their own lives. Everyone has their own issues and problems. No one's thinking about you for more than 10 seconds, even though everyone thinks that they are.
Right.
But that's because you want to make yourself the center of attention. No one's truly spending their time thinking of you. And if they are spending, hours a day thinking about you, then there's a greater problem there, and it's on them, not you.
Yeah. And yeah, even if they're the head of your hate club, so friggin' what? So what? I mean, is it on your tombstone? Is it going to be about them, all the people you fear judgment, or is it going to be about you? Right? You got to decide what's more important: other people's opinions, whether it may be totally imagined, which most of it is, or what you want in your life, because that's what it comes down to. No one's going to die for you. You're going to die on your death day, and the question, I've been through a lot, like you have. And in my life, I'm 56 years old, much older than you are. But I realized that life only asks one question to every single person at every single moment. And that's, what are you going to do? That's it. That's the only thing life asks us, and asks us constantly. And I can answer from a place of my higher self, or I can answer from a place of my lower self, which is fear-based. Oh, I'm not going to make too much noise. I'm not going to be too individual. I'm not going to be too expressive. I'm not going to make go for too much grandiose goals, because, that's, well, you don't have to even have an answer. That comes from the lower self, the fear-based self, but the part of you that you tapped into, that went for it, the part that I strive for, that goes for it. I'm going to tell you, man, I said, I'm launching this app, Proficio. It's going to revolutionize self-help and personal development. I had 4 years of pre-development. Then we formed the LLC, the company, Auxilium. And now there's been 4 years of development. We're undercapitalized. We're over 2 years behind schedule. The reason why I don't quit, for a number of reasons, not the least of which is this is my purpose, so it makes it easier to go on. But I got to tell you, this is the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life, man. In my life. And I'm not giving up, man, because I see the mountaintop. I'm going for it. I don't care what people say. I'm going to go for it, because I believe that this is what I'm made to do. And because I have that alignment, all the sacrifices I make, or the uncomfortable feelings I go through, like frustration or disappointment, I do it, it may get me down for a moment, but soon enough that smile comes back on my face and I keep going. And
Absolutely.
and that's, I mean, that's and so I'm talking about purpose. Now you were a football, by the way, what sports are you playing now?
I don't play any sports professionally now.
Okay.
I played football at Tulane and was a captain my senior year. I was an NFL free agent, and now I'm an entrepreneur and a speaker.
Tell me about your businesses.
Yeah. So, out of school, I originally went into the world of finance, realized that wasn't the, best path for me. I liked entrepreneurship. I liked, building my own thing, had developed a business for myself right out of school also as a speaker. And so I get paid to, go to companies, conferences, professional sports teams, schools, events all over the world, both in person and virtual, and share my story, talk on different topics, overcoming obstacles, leadership, diversity, inclusion, things like that. And it's led to so much more. And so right now I'm in the process of, and it will be out very soon, of creating another company. And it's, called Initiate Connections. And what we do is
Repeat the name.
Initiate Connections.
Okay.
And what we do is, create these opportunities, these, workshops, these seminars where me and other, executives, professional athletes go into, companies and put on these, whether it be just a day, of keynote speeches, whether it be a, week long of workshops. Sometimes it will be, 6 months of consulting on different topics that we work on. And there's, a handful of topics that we work through, and, have these, really intensive, speeches, workshops, consulting events to, help bring these organizations, these teams, these companies forward in so many different ways, whether it be in leadership, whether it be in high performance and overcoming obstacles, whether it be in sales, whether it be in different areas. But that's kind of what we're building right now.
I mean, I love that name, Initiate Connection. So that implies that you help people get connected. Either the company helps it or you're promoting these introductions, these conversations. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
That's a great thing, because once you get started, anything is possible. But you got to get started first, right? Right? There's no relationship without the hello, right? You got to have the hello. So you help propagate that hello. That's a critical thing.
Yeah. It's great.
Yeah, and I mean that's a critical part of business is making connections, making relationships and prospering them. And so you help people do that. That's a critical facet of business. And indeed, one of the complaints or excuses that people have is that, I don't have the connections, I wasn't born in the right, in the right class. There's nepotism. And that there may be some validity to that, but you know what? You got to go out and make your way. You got to go out and meet people, and make those connections and make those relationships. And that's exactly what your company does.
Yeah. I mean, look, like I get told no or not invited to speak at companies every single day. The difference is I send out hundreds of messages every single day, which is why I land so many, keynote events, so many, workshops, opportunities like this, because, I might get told no 300 times a day, but guess what? I also might get told yes once a day. So it adds up.
Absolutely. And that's why Thomas Edison is one of my greatest icons. The guy who is one of the most critical people of the world. Guy who not only was critical in electricity, light, movies, and he said the light bulb, I think he tried like 5,000 different attempts to make the light bulb that worked. And took like 5,000 attempts. And then people had asked him about it, and he said, about the 5,000 attempts, he said, well, I found out 4,999 ways not to do it,
Yeah.
But it's that 5,000 that I'm just rounding. That's critical. So, whether you look at it as a numbers game or whatever way you look at it, until you get the yes, it's all a process. It's just a process.
Absolutely.
Great stuff. Let's take a moment to hear from our sponsor, and we'll come right back with Aaron Golub.
This episode of Self-Help Coaching is brought to you by Proficio, perhaps the most common method that coaches worldwide use to get undisputable results for their clients is NLP. Visit www.perficio.io. That's perficio.io, where you can make the changes you want and get the results you dream of.
You're listening to the Self-Help Coaching Podcast with me, your host, Tony Petrozza. We're talking with Aaron Golub. He's talking about overcoming adversity and going for what your dreams are and your goals are. Very inspiring stuff. We talked about his business, which is Initiate Connections. Now I want to go back a little bit. At the beginning, I mentioned his bio, which was in football in the beginning, and now of course he's a businessman. But I'd like you to describe your personal development journey. Can you get back to perhaps the inception of it and bring us through to today? Just sum it up. Because obviously you're about personal development. From my view, would you concur?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't think that there's any key point or one instance of when that journey started per se. I think, I wouldn't have even classified it as that back then.
That's my job. That's my job, Aaron. I classify it as personal development.
It's more, what are the lessons you learn each and every day, that build and help you move forward is kind of the way that I think of it. And I think I've always thought of it. And, in high school, it was, how do I, get better at this specific skill so I can play football at the level I want? How do I get the attention of coaches so I can make a team? How do I, not worry about the judgments and opinions of others? And things like that have just developed over time into more complex scenarios. Now it's, how do I build a multi-million-dollar company without, worrying about failing and the fear of, of not making the money we want or not fulfilling what we need to for our customers and our clients. And it just develops over time is kind of the way I think through it.
So it seems to me you already know the what and the why behind the what. This is what I want to do, and you know why you want to do it, and it's practically automatic to you. And then you ask that critical question: how am I going to do it? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? Instead of the negative thoughts, the obstacles. I mean, of course, I'll bet you think about the obstacles because that's how you overcome them. You define them, but you don't think about them stopping you. You think about you overcoming them. Is that correct?
Yeah. I think so many people have this idea that the obstacles, the adversities that they face are, out to get them, that the world is out to get them. And that's just not true. The challenges, the adversities that you face are there for you for a reason, for you to learn, for you to grow, for you to get better. Me being legally blind is the greatest thing that's ever happened to me because it's allowed me to grow. It's allowed me to meet amazing people, have incredible experiences, be involved in so many things. Recently, for example, because of my background, my story, what I've done in, business and life, one of my business partners and I got an opportunity to go into a different company and own a third of that company to help grow it and build it. It's not my main company, but it's, I'm very excited to be involved in that. And if my story hadn't happened, I wouldn't have had opportunities like that. It's just, when you look at it that way, you can look at things as a blessing instead of saying, I'm legally blind, I can't do X, Y, and Z. This sucks. This is horrible, which is what most people look at.
Right. I have a protege, and right now we're studying Marcus Aurelius's The Meditations. Are you familiar with Marcus Aurelius at all?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he was a Stoic Roman emperor 1800 years ago. And I never really was into philosophy, but now I'm really getting into it, but practical philosophy, not esoteric stuff. Anyway, in his book, The Meditations, he goes into providence a lot. Now, I always believe that, there's a cliche that everything happens for a reason. I never bought into that because to me that I didn't like to think that we didn't have much free will, or, it sounded like that was a cop out. I believe that everything happened for a reason. Often it was a stupid reason. But in the reading of this book, and the more I read it and learned it, and the more I began to subscribe to this idea of providence, which is that everything happens so that the better thing can happen subsequently. And I really come to be totally reject that for years, for most of my life, to now embrace it. So what that means is that these obstacles, these difficulties, these problems, they're there on purpose and you need them. I need them. We need them to get where we want to go, to get where our destiny. So, you being blind, me, I'm a recovering addict. I'm 22 years clean and sober. That was necessary for me. And I'm not quite sure of what's ahead. I'm just a human. We don't know the future.
Yeah.
We have our hopes, we have our dreams, but we don't know the future. But I'll find out maybe the day before I die. I already mentioned the death day. Now, hope I'm not being too morose. But things become revealed. And like maybe like perhaps, and this is just conjecture. Years down the road, I could see that my story of recovery from addiction and alcoholism really inspired a lot of people to do that. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe that's why it had to happen, or maybe whatever it is. And you don't even have to go into the future, which is all imagination anyway. But in the present, or if you look back into the past of these problems and these difficulties we've had, especially the ones that we've overcome, we can see there's some journey, right? Something going on. And then have an indication or a suggestion of what step we might go next, or what direction we might go next, right? And we don't know what's going to happen, because our only business is the present day. But we got to think about the past a little bit. Got to think about the future a little bit. We got to get busy today, because today is where all the magic happens.
Absolutely.
And it's just from this brief conversation, I know that that's why I dared say it, by positing it, because I knew that you knew that, and that's a critical thing. But did you, when you had obviously this obvious difficulty of blindness, how did you approach it? Did you look at it with as this obstacle that you had to overcome, or did you have a spiritual side to it? I mean, tell me about that.
I think for me, it was always just aligning, what do I want to do for myself? I think there's these two forms of motivation that I like to talk about, and it's internal and external motivation. And most people focus on external motivators. I want to do this because someone else thinks I can, or someone else thinks I can't. I want to do this because of X, Y, and Z. And there are times and places for them, but they also don't last long. And so, for example, like if I go to the gym and I want to squat a heavy weight, I'm going to think about something that pisses me off for the next 30 seconds. So I, can squat that weight. And that's great. And that is an external motivator, and that can help in that 30 seconds to a minute, short-term dose. And that's awesome. However, internal motivators are what takes you the long way, is what lasts you through a day, through a week, through a month, through a year, through a decade. And for me, it was, I have this internal motivation of, I want to play Division I football. I want to play professional football. I want to build an extremely successful business, because I want to do it for myself, because I want to prove myself right. Not because I want to prove anyone else wrong, not because someone said I can or can't do something, but because it's what I genuinely want to do. And so when I focus that way, and I focus on that internal motivator, I don't really even focus on the obstacle. I focus on, why do I want to do something, and how do I get there?
Absolutely. I mean, we can look at these, we see all these, we can have these external reasons, but truly all reasons are internal, and whether they be strong, motivating reasons like you've got, or lesser potent reasons. I think the big trick is what you really got a grasp of, is making that reason a big one, a really big one. And that drives you. Is that correct?
100%, because, if it's not a big reason, if it's not aligned with who you are and what you want to do, and it speaks to you truly internally, then you'll never get it done. Trust me, I've failed more than I've succeeded, whether it be in athletics or life or business. It's so many more times I've failed than I've succeeded. But the difference is, I keep trying each and every time. I keep getting up. I keep figuring it out. And every single project I take on is aligned with, do I truly want this for myself? Do I truly believe in this? Do I, have a passion and internal motivation to see this through?
Absolutely. I basically failed, to use that term, in all the businesses I've had, which is really an arguable thing, but didn't make the $1 million or whatever. But it's persistence. It's a cliche, but it's true. Persistence is the key to success. The other side of that coin, though, is that's not talked about as much, is learning. You got to learn. You got to not repeat the same mistakes. Maybe not learn it in such an obvious way, which is ideal, but certainly not repeat it, at least not consciously or unconsciously.
Well, so here's the thing. We're brought up to believe that if you get a D or an F in school, it's a bad thing. And that's not true. So if you're in school and you fail a test or get an F on a paper, that's not failure. That's not failing. That's you got an F one time. Now, if you turn it around and learn from that and say, hey, maybe I need to study differently. I need to take this test differently, whatever. And next time you get a C, and then you continue to learn from that, and then you get a B, and then eventually you get an A. That was not failure. That was something incredible that happened because it taught you how to change what you do. Now, if you get an F and then you don't change anything and your next 16 tests are Fs, well, then you failed. And I'm sorry, that's, can't really help you too much if you don't want to try and change. But if you take that F and you figure out what you did wrong and how you can improve and you get a better grade next time, that's success. That's not failure.
Absolutely. Now, I'm certainly not saying this for any religious reason, but have you ever heard of the 7 deadly sins?
I have.
Yeah, and of the 7, pride is the deadliest of them all. And I contend that, or one way to look at pride is that there's no need to self-improve. I'm already good as I am. There's no need to self-improve. And I contend that is the worst sin. I always need to self-improve. Not that I'm always not grateful. That's the opposite of want to be. I always want to be grateful, but that I can be better, not for self-aggrandizement, but I can be the better me.
Yeah.
Be the better. That's what I'm always striving for, is the better me.
100%. And when you're able to constantly improve just a tiny bit each and every day, you're amazed by the compound effect there.
Absolutely. And that's one thing I learned to do long ago to my great advantage, is that because I used to compare myself to others all the time. And I used to be very negative, and people who know me now, they'd say they couldn't recognize me back then. And the people who knew me then, they couldn't recognize me now. And I used to call myself Wish Man. I always found myself wishing for this, wishing for that. I used to call myself Wish Man, which was, I realized at one point, was an anti-experience. I know how it is not to have that thing, and it feels like crap. And I dwelled in it, right? And then I didn't try. Then I wouldn't try for it because I knew I would fail. So then I avoided disappointment. Then I manifested that. So that was all that complexity of my dysfunction,
Yeah.
And I had a lot of learning and growing and healing and evolving to do. And I'm on my way, man. As we all are. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And before we go to the next commercial break, I want to say one thing talking about football. I used to play football, not, when I was a kid, but I was in a league, and I was a safety on the defense and a receiver on the offense. What was your position?
I was a long snapper.
Long snapper. So you were on the line.
So I was, for punts and field goals, I was the person who threw the ball back to the punter or the holder. Then I would have to block the person in front of me and run downfield. All right, man.
It was a lot of, I loved being an athlete as a kid. There's so much that a person derives about being an athlete, especially a team player, being on a team. I mean, individual sports are great, but being on a team, man, that's the goal. Because we have to. We're individuals, and I often expound, and I'm the big champion of individuality. And that's our great gift, is the gift of yourself, to be here in this world. That's great, and you want to grow that, but you don't want to do that too much. You don't want to be selfish. It's in our DNA, but you don't want to be too selfish. You got to also think about others. You got to think about, the group, the collective, and indeed,
definitely.
As a coach, I often say, or especially as it's pertinent, you got to grow the self, and you got to grow the ability to work with the others, because in that balance is the ideal. And the more you can do both, the further you'll go in life.
Definitely.
Great stuff. Thanks for agreeing with me, Aaron. All right, let's take a moment to hear from our sponsor, and we'll come right back with the great Aaron Golub.
This episode of Self-Help Coaching is brought to you by Proficio. What is the key to wealth? It's not just making money. It's not wasting it. Avoiding debt and costly mistakes. To get the wealth mindset, visit www.proficio.io. That's PERFICIO.io, where you can start acting like a millionaire instead of just dreaming to be one.
You're listening to the Self-Help Coaching Podcast with me, your host, Tony Petrozza. We're speaking with Aaron Golub. We're talking about evolving and achieving your goals and overcoming your adversity, which leads me to my next question, Golub. Okay, Aaron, Golub, what am I, your coach? Miss Golub, get over here, get in this huddle. I'm sorry about that. I was in the military. So you talked about your football background, the earlier years, and now business. What are your goals now? All right, you have all that in the background. Now I know of at least two businesses. I know you got your own business, Initiate Connections, another business you mentioned that you got into. What are your goals now?
Yeah, I think everything that I do is surrounded or circulated around how can I impact and help other people, and that's the main goal. Each and every day is how can I impact and help a new person or new people each and every day. Obviously, I want to see financial success in my business. I want to see success in my relationships. I want to, see success in, my body and my mind and spirituality and all of those things. But it's centered around, how do you help others and make an impact? And, when you focus on that, when you focus on the holistic goals, everything else will come. The money will come, the, relationships will come, the, impact will come. It's just focusing on how can you improve each and every day instead of focusing on how do I make $1 million? Because, then it's going to be a lot harder to actually do that.
Absolutely. Helping others get what they want is the best way to get what you want. Intermittently over a long period of time, I considered going to school to become a psychologist. And as a coach, I am a practical psychologist out of necessity, but, a BS psychologist. I never gone to school for it. Right? At one point, some years ago, I had to make a decision because I got tired of this recurring thought. I said, am I going to go to school for psychology or am I just going to be an entrepreneur? And because my company Auxilium and Proficio, I was like, that's it. I'm going to throw the psychology idea out my head and just focus on entrepreneurialism because I really believe I can help a lot more people as an entrepreneur. Not that I don't praise psychologists, I do. And Proficio is going to, Proficio is going to empower people. And because it's gonna make self-help work. And the slogan of my company is, which I think I love, is that helping others change the world. Right? Everybody wants to change the world. I want to change the world, but imagine helping others change the world. And imagine if you can help millions to help change the world. Boy, that's some serious change.
Yeah.
And that's what people want to do. They want to change the world in their own way, in the way that's important to them. And of course the coaching professions, the helping profession, the change work is all about helping people, obviously. But when an individual helps another, there's a special reward, that maybe some people, they don't talk about it. It's just a subjective thing they keep to themselves. But when I first started coaching people professionally, I got the greatest hoot out of, helping a client get their outcome. I thought it was the greatest thing. I was like, especially when I was using neuro-linguistic programming and it was working. I was like, this shit really works, and they're like, oh, life's great, Tony. I was like, wow, helping people is really a great thing. And as I said, and I didn't originate it, helping others is the best way to get what you want.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Now, I'm gonna get into something. I hope that it's you don't mind, and you let me know if you do. Now, you're legally blind. You're still legally blind?
Yep.
Okay. Can you talk about how much, right now, over 99% of the audience is just listening to us. This is also be on YouTube. And for those who like to see a handsome man, go on YouTube. Aaron is a handsome man. Don't look at my ugly face. But how much can you see? And it has that chance.
Yeah, so I have no vision in my right eye at all, and I've limited in my left. And so my left eye is, a really tiny hole, and my vision is about 22 or 2300. And so, what someone who has perfect vision could see from that eye, at 200, 300 feet away, I would probably see like 20, 25 feet away. But it's also just a really small hole. I only see out of a very small portion of that eye. It's not, the entire area.
Did you have an accident? Was it congenital?
I was born with it.
Okay. So now it's often said that, especially with blind people or any sort of quote unquote handicap or disability, that these people utilize more of other senses. Is that true for you?
I wouldn't say that that's true. I mean, I would say that, maybe I pay more attention to other things like my hearing when I'm crossing the street or something. So in those instances, yes, absolutely. But, it's ironic because I think I'm definitely a visual learner. I have to see something to understand it a lot of the time. And so it just really depends on what the circumstance is.
Now you have partial vision, thank
Yes.
God. Now imagine, I wonder how it's like for someone who's always been blind, but completely 100% black blind, when they imagine imagery or sight or vision. Well, imagine what it's like for them. Like you talked about, you're a visual learner, so I'm extremely visual. And I use it on multiple levels in multiple facets. But if a blind person who's always just known nothing but darkness, I wonder what that experience is like in terms of this, sans this visual capability, which is of course, a perception, a sensory for the exterior. But what about the interior that's never known it? Do you know anything about that? Can you offer something on that?
I think that they adapt to the situation at hand. Obviously I'm fortunate that I have vision. I understand what images are and what the world looks like from one of my two eyes. But if someone didn't have that, they have to adapt and they'd have to use their imagination and have to be more creative. I'd assume to figure out and navigate their way through life.
Everybody, I just came across very recently a poem that I wrote in the 90s before I recovered from addiction, and the poem was about my cross to bear in life, which was addiction, and that's what the poem was about. I think it was called My Crucifix or something corny like that. Everyone has their cross. Everyone has their crucifix, no matter who they are, no matter how rich or how much privileged we think they are. Everyone has their own issues or problems or adversities. Do you have any general advice for people? And this is going to be my final question. Do you have what's your advice for people who have dealing with their adversities?
Understand that, likely it's not as bad as it seems, and you need to control what you can control. When you can figure out what you actually can control, what you actually can do to move the needle forward, what you actually can do to, push through that adversity, you can make a difference. You can make a change. I think so many people see a task, see a goal and think it's impossible. And because they think it's impossible, it becomes impossible. But if they see that task that they might have thought was impossible and they truly believe that they can do it, guess what? It becomes that they can do it. And so when you can shift your perspective like that, then anything becomes possible.
Fantastic. Aaron Golub, this has been a fantastic conversation and discussion. I really appreciate you showing up and being so candid. Great stuff. I think it was very entertaining and interesting and illuminating. Do you have any final remarks for the audience?
Yeah, look, if I can ever help in any way, feel free to reach out on social media is at Aaron J. Golub. My website is aarongolub.com, or my email is aaron@aarongolub.com.
And is there any new things going on? You got any new stuff going on?
Always developing, and more info with my company will be out, on social media and through my email and stuff in the, coming weeks, which will be great. But, stay tuned on there, but feel free to reach out if I can, help in any way. Happy to do so.
Great stuff. Thanks a lot, Aaron. I really appreciate it. And remember, everyone, we're all responsible for ourselves, and we can all use a little help. And with that, thanks a lot for joining me. We'll see you next time. Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Self-Help Coaching Podcast, where insights, attitudes, and methods for success get illuminated. Learn what leaders and change workers have done and are doing now to create magnificent futures. Remember to visit our website at self-helpcoaching.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Self-Help Coaching Podcast.